Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to another Between Takes episode of Missing Frames. I am your host, Shawn Eastridge. Normally on Missing Frames, we watch all of the movies we should have seen by this point in our lives. But these Between Takes episodes kind of give me an excuse to do things outside of the concept. Now, if you know me, and I'm pretty sure most of you listening do know me, you know I am a massive Superman fan. He's been my favorite superhero for pretty much my entire life. My first official filmmaker interview was with Richard Donner, the director of the 1978 Superman film starring Christopher Reeve. And if you haven't listened to that, who even are you? Go listen. You can find the interview's transcript on the Comic Book Couples Counseling podcast website. Go do that. I highly encourage it. So anyway, all this said, I could not be more excited for James Gunn's Superman film, which is going to be released worldwide on July 11th. So I'm starting a new side project under the Between Takes umbrella, and we're calling it Celebrating Superman. So starting from now, right now, until the new movie is released in July, I will be interviewing as many Superman-related people as I can. So writers, artists, filmmakers, actors, fans, anybody who has some association or love for the character, who's created amazing stories about the character. Basically, anyone I can get in touch with who does not immediately block my email address. I am inviting them to the podcast to celebrate Superman. And we're kicking off this Superman celebration in grand fashion. We are talking with Mark Waid. And when I say we, I mean, like you're part, the royal we. We're all part of this together. But I got to talk to Mark Waid. He really is he's one of the best writers of all time. If you name a superhero, chances are he's written for them, like The Flash, Fantastic Four, Captain America. He did a run on Daredevil that was amazing. But most importantly, for the purposes of this podcast, he wrote Kingdom Come and Superman Birthright. And honestly, Birthright may be my favorite Superman story. It's definitely tied in the top spot, maybe with For All Seasons and Tom King's Up in the Sky. We talk about all kinds of stuff. We talk about some of the new projects he's working on, some of the old projects he's worked on. We talk about why he loves Superman, why it's a great time to be a Superman fan. He kind of teases this project that he couldn't tell me about, but he mentioned how excited he was for it. And then literally a couple days after we had our conversation, DC released the news that he was taking over Action Comics and would be writing like a Superboy story, like showcasing Clark as like a teenager, young man, kind of finding his way. Lots of great stuff to talk about, lots of great stuff for you to listen to, I hope. So if you enjoy, please feel free, share it with your friends, family, tell them about it. Other Superman fans, come hang out with me. I need more Superman fans in my life. With all that said, let's push off, shall we?
Now available to own on video cassette.
All right, Mark, my dear friends over at the Comic Book Couples Counseling podcast, Brad and Lisa, they interviewed you recently.
Love Brad and Lisa.
They're the best. And but you said something that I take particular umbrage with. Now, at the end of the episode, they asked you to give somebody who's maybe walking out of James Gunn's Superman and like, well, I want to get into Superman. What can I read? What's the best comic? You had a great option.
I said it, All-Star Superman, right?
Yeah, All-Star Superman, Grant Morrison's All-Star Superman. Yeah. But then you said the thing that I take umbrage with, which is you were like, I'm always going to have to play second fiddle. I'm the Salieri to Morrison's Mozart.
I've been saying that for 40 years, though. I'm the Salieri to Grant's Amadeus Mozart. It's okay. I've made my peace with the fact that as long as I live, I will never top All-Star Superman. So
I'm gonna come up with a better music metaphor for you.
All
Let's
right.
do this. Let's do this. So let's say if All Star Superman
Hmm.
is the Beatles' Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Okay.
Superman Birthright is Pet Sounds, which
Okay. I'll
is
give you that.
an album that came out right before
Yeah.
that pushed the Beatles to the next level and
All right.
inspired them to make Sergeant Pepper's. You're the Beach Boys making one of the greatest albums of all time.
All right. I appreciate it, and I think I'll take that. I'll be Pet Sounds. He can be Sergeant Pepper. All good with that.
You can both be on the list.
All
So
good.
personally, I've got to say I would put Birthright number one on my list.
Well, so would I, but I'm not going to say that out
I know, but
loud.
I wanted to
Yeah.
give you the outlet to be able to say
Right.
it. This is a safe space. We
Right.
can put that at the top of our
Okay.
list. So that is great. And I have a very important question. I don't know. This is just something I randomly thought of. I've been amassing collections of these absolute editions
Yeah.
of All Star Superman. The Jeff Johns Gary Frank one just came out. When are we gonna see an absolute Birthright? Is that something that will ever happen?
I would hope so. Yeah, it's nothing that's ever been discussed that I know of, but I mean, depending upon how the movie goes, I suspect that this will not just be the summer of Superman. This will be the year of Superman. So that would be nice if we can get that. But I have no idea what the trade paperback gods have in mind.
They should have this in mind. Not
Yeah,
just and for us, I mean, for us Birthright fans, I mean, we gotta stick together. We gotta put in a word and talk to the powers that be and let them
I
know
agree.
that
Yes,
we
by all means, bombard DC. Yes, by all means.
I love that you said this might not just be the summer of Superman, it may be the year of Superman. The last time I spoke with you, you may not remember, it was Big Lick Comic Con. I think James Gunn and Peter Safran had just taken over DC,
Mhm.
and James had just announced that he was going to be writing and directing the
Yeah,
Superman film, that he was taking that on. And I remember saying to you, it's a great time to be a Superman
I
fan.
agree.
That has not been the case for a little while.
No, it's nice that the film franchise is in the hands of someone who clearly likes it and is not embarrassed by it and is not trying desperately to make a gloom and doom, dark, what if Superman were like the rest of us kind of movie. Which, if you like that kind of thing, be my guest. But that is not my feeling about Superman.
You and me both. So the past times I've interacted with you. I think Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice had come out, and we were lamenting how much fun it was to see a Jimmy Olsen cameo where the character is immediately murdered.
Immediately murdered. Right.
So it was nice to finally be like, you know what, like. For once, I'm not complaining about like, oh, the mishandling and the da da da. And as Superman has been my favorite, as I know he's been
Yeah.
yours for, I mean, my whole life, as long as I can
Sure.
remember.
Same here. And so it's nice to have it in the hands of somebody who's not a frat boy with a camera, just trying to do cool stuff, KEWL stuff.
It's amazing to see a filmmaker who knows how to use color in a film, like
Yes.
somebody who understands what color is. It's
Yes,
nice.
exactly. Well, again, there's this whole branch of TV and filmmakers who still feel embarrassed by the source material rather than embracing it. And I hope that, obviously, I hope it's good. I hope it's really great. But the good news is, if it's really great, that is good news not just for Superman, but for superhero movies going forward. That hopefully that'll be the last nail in the coffin for people who keep wanting to come and show us how it really should be done if it were dark and human. And again, that there's room for those kind of movies, but I have no interest in them.
And it's not even just, what I've used as an example is if we're being really honest, I think you may agree with me. I think we have one truly great Superman movie, and that is
Yes.
the 1978 Richard Donner film.
Right. Mhm.
There have been varying levels of good Superman movie. Superman 2 is
I
good.
mean, because I remember being really upset when I came out of Superman 2. I was crushed
Mm.
because Richard Lester's contributions were just comic. And I that whole scene at the end where the Phantom Zone criminals are destroying Metropolis, but it's played for laughs.
Yeah.
I remember it really got under my skin. And so, and three has its moments, even four. I like the speech. I like the speech he gives to the UN, the fakest looking UN you've ever seen. Um, Brandon Routh did a really good job in a otherwise problematic movie.
Yep.
And then,
And then there's some other ones.
And there's some other, even if Henry Cavill had been given something to do that was actually Superman, that he might have been good.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love Henry Cavill. I wish they had done right by him.
I do too.
I think he could have done it. Yeah, but I think it's because it's been such a long time. It feels like what happened was, as you're saying, I think Snyder's approach and maybe Warner Brothers and DC's approach at the time was like, Nolan's making these Batman movies and they are raking in the dollars.
That's exactly what I mean. I've had conversations with Warner Brothers executives years and years ago about how do we make Superman, and their answer, they were asking me and Grant and Marv Wolfman and people like that, and the answer was from us, you should do Superman. And their answer was, yes, but Batman makes a lot of money, so all the movies should be as close to Batman as they possibly could, which from a bean counter standpoint makes perfect sense. If you're
Yeah.
just making widgets, that makes perfect sense. But clearly that did not work.
It's not going to work if that's what you're looking at. The
Right,
surface level,
exactly.
oh, dark, angry, gritty, angsty. That's not what people are connecting with. They're
No.
connecting with the story. What I've always said to people is, look, Superman 1978 is a masterpiece, but it's Goldfinger. It's Sean
Mhm.
Connery, James Bond, which is like
Yes.
masterpiece, but very much of its time. So what we need
Yes.
right now is Casino Royale Superman.
Yes. That's a really good analogy.
And it is not, when I say that, it's not gritty.
No, it's just like you said, it's a contemporary look at a movie that is 45 years old that I love with all my heart, and there are places where it just doesn't completely hold up. One of the things that broke my heart in two, seeing it in the movie theater a few years ago for the 45th anniversary, was that the phone booth gag did not land with a single person in that not a one. No one got not a nothing, no reaction. So, yeah, there's stuff in there that doesn't hold up. And Clark is, in retrospect, pretty cartoony.
Yeah.
I think there's some nuance that you can give that character without losing what makes Clark interesting. But yeah, again, I trust James Gunn completely. I mean, he made us like the Guardians of the Galaxy. That's a wizard move right there. So,
Right.
and he got all that dark Superman crap out of his veins with Brightburn.
Yeah, that's right. I'll mend your heart a little bit. I have a friend of mine, early 20s, and I showed her Superman. I showed her Donner's Superman. This will ease your pain a little bit. When the phone booth gag happened,
Yeah,
she
yeah.
looked at me and she goes, "Oh, the phone booth." And I was
Oh,
like,
that's cute. Okay.
"Oh,
Yeah,
wonderful, wonderful."
yeah.
So it's not completely lost, but in general, I think your general 20-year-old is not going to watch that and be
No,
like, "I get it, I get it."
right.
But we've been talking about the movies, what we
Mhm.
love about the films, but I want to know, what is your, not the moment where you fell in love with Superman, but what's your first memory of encountering the character? Was it comic books, I'm guessing, or was it the TV show?
It was comics. I grew up in the 60s and I lived in rural Alabama. So we had, the three networks and one UHF station. So syndication was not really as big a deal out there as it was in the major metropolitan areas where you got several TV stations. So I never saw the George Reeves show until I was in my 20s. So it really was World's Finest 160 was the first time I ever saw Superman anywhere. And then Superman 192, I think, was my first Superman comic.
Do you remember what happened in that one?
Yeah, it was the first part of a two-part imaginary story with Clark losing his powers and his kid has superpowers. And now what do we do? Oh, good. Oh, the peril. I mean,
Classic
it was
Silver Age.
classic Silver Age stuff. Yes, yes, yes. Um, and yeah, and part of the reason that's so fresh in my mind is because recently I have rebuilt that collection for yeah, 10, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe. I put my comics collection up on consignment because I had digital copies of almost everything. And I just got tired of moving 100 boxes around wherever I moved. So uh, I regret that financially didn't pay off as well as I'd hoped, but
Mm.
I have started to rebuild parts of the Silver Age collection, like the stuff I would have had, not the stuff I didn't have, or not the stuff that starts before or that. It's just like I'm building from about 1966 to about 1970, and I'm just luxuriating in all that stuff all over again.
Nice. You tell this story about what made you fell in love with Superman. And I realized I didn't know this, but would you mind sharing that?
I'm happy to. I like Superman. when I was a teenager, but I liked, magic tricks, and I liked, gum cards, and I liked a bunch of different things. And so I like superheroes. Read comics faithfully, but I was not like a dyed in the wool ride or die Superman fan. And then I went to see the movie on this January 26th, 1979. I went to see the movie. I sat there twice just two in a row, sat there two viewings in a row. And when I came out of that movie, I knew that whatever the rest of my life was going to be, it had to have something to do with Superman. Because going in, I was in a broken home. I was in a really dark place.
Mm.
Neither of my parents really knew what
How old were you at
parents.
the time, if you don't mind my
No, no,
asking?
no, like 14, 15, somewhere along in
Okay.
there, maybe 15. And it just 16. I'm sorry, 16. So it just nothing was gelling. I didn't have any friends at school because I was a
Mm.
couple of grades further down the line. It had been, bumped up a couple of years. So I was the runty kid who didn't have any friends. And I really went into that movie theater thinking that nobody cared whether I even lived or died. It was that dark. And I came out of that movie theater, like I said, ride or die for Superman for the rest of my life. And
Mm.
years later, I realized that it's because Superman cares about everybody. Doesn't matter who you are, what your situation is. He cares about everybody. And I know he's a fictional character. I knew he was a fictional character back then. I'm not crazy, but it still touched me. It still was exactly what I needed at that exact moment in my life. And it was the key moment that made me a Superman fan to the end of time.
Something I tell people all the time, to explain, and it's unfortunate as a Superman fan, it feels like we have to do a lot more explaining
Then
than,
Batman fans. That's true.
yes,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
Batman, anybody,
Right.
you have to kind of justify in a way, like, really,
Yeah.
Superman? He's kind of,
Yeah.
you've heard it all.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard it all. He's boring. He's all this stuff. And what I tell people, I'm like, look, it all comes down to this. Uh, Superman is the most powerful being on the planet in the universe. He can, bend steel in his bare hands, change the course of mighty, all these things that we know about Superman. And he's saving the president in Air Force One when an engine blows up because lightning
Right.
strikes it. He's stopping robbers. He's stopping shootouts. He's doing these big miraculous things. Those things are important. But to him, just as important is this little girl over here whose cat is stuck in a tree.
Absolutely.
It's that, is dichotomy the right word? The most powerful man in the universe cares about about all of these things equally. They matter equally to him.
Yes.
It's not just about the big fights and the battles, it's about those small moments.
And as I think we see every time we look at the news for the last couple of months, the most powerful people in the world generally don't give a rat's ass about us.
Right.
And Superman's greatest power, I've always said his greatest power is not flying or super strength. It is selflessness. Is the fact that he will always put other people ahead of himself, and he will always serve the public good and do as much good as he possibly can. He feels that this is a responsibility. This is the power you were given. These are the advantages you've been given. You need to use them to make the world a better place. That's not a hard message to understand, but some people don't.
I think it, especially now, there's I almost feel like the path is perfectly paved. That when that trailer came out for James Gunn's movie, the vibe I get is this
Yeah.
feeling of hopefulness, of
Yes.
here's a hero who's going to come in and help and do something helpful. How did you feel about the trailer?
No, I love it. I love the trailer. Part of that was because I had, and everything was fine. Jumping ahead, spoiler alert, everything was fine, but I had to go in the hospital for a few days. And because of this, as anybody who's ever been in the hospital before can tell you overnight, they you think you've got the meds that you're supposed to have, or the meds that you take every day, and maybe you do, but maybe you don't, and it's 4 in the morning, and I don't know. So I know that when I came out of the hospital, I was Mr. Coffee Nerves. I was just, something wasn't right in me, and it was going to take a couple of days to settle back down. But that's when I saw the trailer and I burst into tears, which
Mm.
is, a stronger reaction than even I would have anticipated. But it really got me. And I wrote James Gunn and I just said, look, this really hit it out of the park. You came to me at a time I really needed this. Thank you. And he was very effusive about,
Yeah.
thanking me for thanking him.
That's, I mean, well, that's high praise coming from you.
Yeah, it really was. It was the music more than anything else. It was the visuals are great, but just hearing that music and being so gratified that he is finding a way of using that music that is not just a straight up karaoke of John Williams, but
Yeah.
still has it. To do a Superman movie without that music is like doing the James Bond movies without the James Bond music, right?
I couldn't agree more. I had prepared myself emotionally. Look, I trust James Gunn.
Mhm,
I love him. I love his enthusiasm. I trust that he's going to do right by this character. Would I love the John Williams theme? Of course I would, but but it's okay. And I kind of reasoned with myself in my head, and every time he would post something or David Cornsweet would post something,
mhm.
they'd use that theme,
Yeah,
or I'm following all this stuff on social and I'm like, I don't know, they're using that theme an awful lot. I'm not going to get my hopes up, but let's wait and see. And then finally, when the poster reveal and that trailer, but I'm
yeah.
with you. I'm not one to sit and get very emotional over a trailer, and that trailer got me. That trailer got me, and what it was, the music, 100%. But I was talking
Mhm.
with my wife about it. My wife, because I was like, I was like, I cried when I was watching it,
Sure.
and she was like, "Oh, what was it? Was it crypto? Like, it was
Mhm.
just great seeing crypto." I was like, "Well, crypto, that's
Yeah.
wonderful." But the moment that got me was the little boy.
Boy, raising the flag.
Yeah,
Yep, that was the one. That was the moment that got me.
I realized, and this is not to say there's no superhero like this, because some of the best moments of comics and superheroes are heroes saving kids. But when
Mhm.
you really think about it, it's like Batman, Spider-Man, heroes I love, Daredevil, like these are heroes that are kind of driven by like how badass they are, Spider-Man
Right,
arguably not so much, but it's like Spider-Man's a little bit more of an everyman, but Batman and Daredevil especially are very like they're gonna beat the crap out of some guys, and they're
right.
not so much about rescuing people.
No, and they're not about right, and they have no relationship with kids.
Yes,
I don't know the last time I saw, Batman save a child, specifically save a child, unless he was part of a family walking down an alleyway in the middle of the night.
right.
Um, and so there's that. There's also, I think, the reason I reacted so strongly is the same reason that and the last time I got choked up in a movie theater about a comic book movie was Captain America,
Mm,
the first one, when they ask him, why do you want to do this? Do you want to kill Nazis? And he says, no, I don't want to kill Nazis. I just, I hate bullies.
mm.
And I shuddered because, oh my God, you got it. You got it. We've had 20 years of superhero movies about vengeance and orphan revenge, and that's what motivates everybody. And finally we've got so I you got and it felt the same way with the Superman trailer. Like, I can tell you got it, you understand who this character is just from that trailer.
Yeah, that's what my feeling was too. And it was that kind of like a moment where it's something in the back of your mind about something you love that you've never quite realized, like maybe kind of like what you were feeling when you saw Captain America, where you're like, that's it. That
Yeah,
summarizes this character. It was that moment for me where I realized, because then I think right before that, like the first big action shot of that trailer is him rescuing that girl while this huge
yeah,
explosion. And I
yeah.
realize I'm like, this is why I'm so happy James is the one making the movie, because two of the big hero shots of the movie involve him saving a kid or like a
Kid.
child, like, and
Yep.
that element of childlike wonder is very unique to Superman because
Yes,
of that.
it really is. I mean, it's not to say that other superheroes don't save kids, but Superman seems to specialize in saving kids.
He gives them a hug. He wants to, it's like it's
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, it's not just about pulling you out of the fire. It's about making sure you're safe afterwards and making sure that, you get home to mom and, telling you how brave you were. And that's what Superman does. Superman inspires.
Did you read David Cornsweet's quote about the trunks? The reason, the
Yes.
justification for the trunks,
Yes. Like,
which is just to let everyone know. Basically, there was a conversation. James wasn't sure if he wanted Superman to have the infamous red trunks or not, and David Cornsweet's justification was like, "Look, he doesn't want to scare people. He wants
right.
kids to like him." And I've never heard that justification before, but I wanted to get your thoughts on
I,
that.
I never heard it quite that way. I played it with Birthright in the sense that the reason he wears the garish costume is because he doesn't want people to be afraid of him.
Yeah,
He wants them to see him coming from a mile away, to know that they are safe, to know that they are not being, no, he's not lurking in the shadows trying to do anything nefarious. You can see him from a mile away. but that was a really great twist on that. This idea that why not give him the outfit of a wrestler? Kids love wrestlers. Kids, you want kids to love Superman, and that was a pretty sharp take. It's akin to something I love about Superman that is often overlooked in terms of his relationship with kids, and that is the infamous winking at the audience in the last panel or the last scene of when Clark turns to us and winks at us. And what that is, and the reason that is important, the reason that works is because that's saying to the audience, which at that point is mostly kids, you and I share a secret that no one else in the world shares, but you and me. And is, that is how Superman bonds with kids. Come on.
Yeah, I love it. And
Yeah.
I had the great privilege. I mean, when I told you, I was like, "Oh, I got to interview Richard Donner." You were like, "Oh, that's great." He invited me to his house to watch the Donner cut of Superman 2, and I was like, "Well,
Yeah. Yeah. I
all
wouldn't say I'm
right."
friends. I wouldn't say I was friends, but I did at least get to do that, which is
You
pretty
got to
cool.
do that, which is
Yeah.
certainly more than I got to do. But one of the questions I had for him, I'd heard him answer this in a variety of ways, but
Mhm.
never, no one had ever asked him this, which was why in a decade where I think, and you probably know, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the example I use and I may be totally wrong, but it feels like in the 70s in particular, comic books were not at an all-time high as far as
Oh, no.
sales or yeah.
No.
Batman was the 66 Batman, which I love and adore, was the most popular mainstream version of a superhero at the
Right.
time. And
Right.
that was a parody, an amazing, creative, hilarious parody, but a
Yeah.
parody that basically said this is something to be laughed at.
Right.
And
Although I would encourage you to go back and look at the actual comics that were being published around that time. I don't know that parody is quite the right word in a lot of cases
you're right. No,
because
you're right.
you go back and look at those comments like, well, that's just as ridiculous as what I saw on TV just a minute ago. So
My dad used to talk about how devastated his friends and he was when they watched the premiere episode and like, oh, it was so goofy. And I was like, well, Dad, the comics were like, it wasn't so far off. Like
no,
they were trapped in a giant hourglass.
yeah, at the time the comics were not really any better. So
Yes, yeah.
um but they did take it more seriously than the TV show did, obviously.
That's exactly right. I think like what's amazing to me is that Donner, gets this offer to make. He's like, here, you want millions of dollars to make the Superman movie? It's like,
Mhm.
how much money? Okay, great, I'll do
Yeah.
it. Make two movies, make two Superman movies back to back. But then for somebody who was an established veteran director in his
Mhm.
40s to come into that project and see a script that was kind of not completely, but really relatively jokey and kind of taking that route of like, this is kind of goofy,
Yeah.
right? And to
Yeah.
say like, this is American mythology, we're going to treat it seriously, like
Yeah.
how meaningful that is. But what that ultimately tells me about Donner is like, he was a child at heart and he never lost touch with that part of
Yes.
himself.
I think that's absolutely true.
And the fact that he chose to do that is so meaningful because we're talking about, kids and stuff and that special connection Superman has with children. But like,
Mhm.
I think what he did and it changed comic books, it changed film, it changed
Mhm.
how superheroes were perceived. But what he did is he basically said to those kids, he said, your belief in this character is real and it
Yeah.
is worthy of the utmost respect.
Right. It is important. Yes, exactly. And it should be your belief in this character should be respected, not mocked.
That always amazed me, and I feel like that you lose touch with that magic and you lose touch with what makes this character special.
Yes.
Talking a little bit about Birthright, you've done this for years and years, but like it's my favorite comic book and
Thank you.
I've got you here, so it's
That's very nice of you to say.
you got into comic books. What were you writing at the beginning and what was the route that eventually got that opportunity on your lap?
It was a long road. I started my professional career actually writing a Superman story, and I sold it to DC 40 years ago exactly last month.
Congratulations. Happy anniversary.
And it was the greatest day of my life. I'd sold an 8-page Superman story, and then I sold another one to the same editor, Julie Schwartz, a few months later. And then I didn't sell any for a long time. What had happened at that point was that this is just before John Byrne came aboard in 86. So 84, 85, DC was doing a ton of business with German publishers who were eating up the Superman material like faster than they could publish it almost. Big appetite for it. So DC was encouraged for the Superman and Action Comics during that time, and go look back and you'll see it, to do 8 and 12 or 8 and 16 page stories,
Mm,
specifically like self-enclosed, don't do any long continuities, just one-offs, make them sort of kid friendly. And that was what drove Superman for the time up to John Byrne coming aboard. And so I was able to get in on that, but I got in it too late because I sold a couple of stories and then the news that John was coming aboard hit, and good, but that left me out of a. So I went on staff as an editor at that time to DC, and I was there for a couple of years, and I managed to connect enough and make enough friends and connections there where when I left, I got a little writing assignment here, a little thing here. I'm working on the Impact comics. I'm doing, Legion 89 or whatever, which was again not anybody's favorite comic, but it was it's a good comic. Um, and then it just kind of, I finally just got to do Justice League. I was doing, and then Kingdom Come was the thing. I mean, Kingdom Come
right.
obviously is the thing that put me on the map, and that was a pretty good demonstration of how much I love Superman. So in 2003, I want to say, that's when the then editor in chief of DC Comics, Dan DiDio, came to me and said, I want a Batman Year One sort of thing for Superman. I want the definitive retelling for the 21st century. You get 12 issues. We'll get you a good artist. It's the new continuity. It's the way you're gonna do all this. So that was thrilling. So I sat down and I broke it all down. I figured it all out.
Was it a little terrifying, or were you? Was it?
It was no, it was. I don't remember ever being scared. It was more like, okay, great. This is what I've been working to my entire life.
Right.
Yeah. Here's my love letter to Superman. So it came out to really good reception. It came out exactly at the same time as Jim Lee and uh, I think Brian Azzarello were doing like a Superman book, and so we didn't get a whole lot of attention.
Mm.
Just bad timing, but it did really well. It's just that the editor in chief who commissioned it didn't like it.
Really?
Didn't like. I don't even know why. It just he didn't like it, and so
So when you say he didn't like it, do you mean the concept or the final
anything,
story?
anything.
Nothing.
Nothing about my approach worked for him. Nothing. And so within 3 or 4 issues, by the time I think we get to issue 5, it had been decided that we were no longer in continuity, that we were never in continuity. And
I,
so,
I was going to ask you about that because I've read many, and the way I look at it, I'm like, look, this is
yeah,
the world of comics. Every day it's a new continuity and there's a new universe altering thing when suddenly all the worlds are one world. I don't pay any attention to any of that, but I was reading like Birthright was commissioned initially as this is going to be the
yes.
canonical Superman origin story. And then it was like, well, maybe not. So I had no idea.
Yeah, so that's what happened there, and so it didn't have much support from DC. But the good news is, like we get the last laugh. Lanil, you and I get the last laugh because that thing's been in print ever since, and it sold hundreds of thousands of copies of that collected edition, and it's an evergreen for DC. So it will always be in print, and that makes me very happy.
I can't tell you how many lists I've seen where it is consistently like top 5 at least. Like I don't think I've read a single best of Superman stories list where Birthright is not in the top 5. Like,
Well,
and
they
if I
haven't
do,
read.
and if I do find them, I
Yeah,
I promptly find a way to take the website down.
thank you. Well, they haven't read the Last Days of Lex Luthor yet, though. So when they read that I think it's a better story, actually.
Wow.
I think it's a better story. It's been done for, I mean, the script's been done for like 6 years. So
What
it's
and what
just
exactly is going on with this? Because there's some confusion about I think schedules or something
right.
happened where
It was just, it was scheduling. It was put on the publishing schedule at the worst possible time. It was just a confluence of unforced errors between production speed and this and that. So uh third one is almost finished with the inking with by Kevin Nolan's beautiful work.
mm,
Second one's going to press any moment now. They're going to reprint the first one just to remind people it exists after 2 years of
Yeah,
being
it
banished.
can't. I've had it on my shelf for, I want to say, at least 2 years.
2 years, yeah. So they're
Jeez.
going to reissue number one, and then two and three in quick succession, monthly, boom, boom, boom. And I got to tell you, having done a final dialogue pass on that third issue just the other day,
Mm,
I, I mean, I could be wrong, but I think it really works. I really do. It's very much sort of Birthright canonical. It is
yeah,
very. There's some slight variations to the way I treated the Lex stuff in Birthright, but not
sure.
really. Um, but it's very much in that same vein. It's very much to me feels like a sequel to Birthright.
Yeah, I mean, the first issue had me hooked, and then
Thank
I
you.
was like, at some point, I remember just realizing, like, hold on a second, like, where is the second
Where's the
issue?
second
And
one?
then,
I know.
and then,
I know.
and then finally, like, going down this rabbit hole of like Google and Reddit of like, what
Yeah,
the hell is going on with this thing? But okay, great, straight from the mouth of the professional himself.
exactly. There you go.
Well, I'm glad we're going to get it this year. We're getting a lot of, again, I ended my interview with Donner chastising him for all the money that has gone from my pocket to Warner Brothers and DC's, which is
Right.
all his fault, really.
Right.
But this year is I've prepped. I've told my wife we're putting line items in the budget. Like this summer, there are a lot of comics coming out relate like a summer of Superman celebration.
Yeah. I hope you're saving up. Summer of Superman is what we're calling it internally. Yeah.
Tell me more about this. I want to. I mean, as much
Sure.
as you can. What
As
is?
much as I can tell you that, Dan Slott has come over from Marvel to do an ongoing Superman series. And so that's going to be terrific. And so that's going to be published concurrently with Action and Superman. It's sort of it's not as intermingled as the Triangle years. It's not quite going to be like that. It's
Sure.
basically just there's room for Superman to have adventures everywhere. And I can't say anything with detail, but I will be participating on a regular basis on a dream project,
Mm,
like maybe the dream project that's not exactly Superman,
hmm.
but it's still the dream project. You'll understand when they make the announcement soon. So
I'm very, very excited for all of this stuff.
it's like I got this gig and I'm like, this is what I've been building to all this time.
Again, that's high praise because your career and the stuff you've done, which literally, like, I was telling people when I explained to non nerds,
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I'm talking with Mark Wade, like, it's like, oh, what has he done? And I'm like, literally, like, some of the greatest stuff you've ever
Thank
read.
you.
Yeah,
He has written and edited over 2,000 comic books. So yes, thank you.
that's another
Yes.
good talking point. Yes. But so it's like high praise coming from you.
No, I was going to say thank you. I'm just really happy with what DC is doing right now. I'm happy with how they're treating me. I'm happy with they're letting me do kind of, especially with the World's Finest with the Batman Superman book.
Yeah.
They're going to let me do whatever I want to do. It's still in continuity, but it's set a few years ago where I don't have to worry about, oh, Superman's on War World for the next year and Batman has lost his money and this and that. I don't have to worry about lining up with current continuity,
Mm.
so I can just do whatever makes sense to me from about 5 years ago DC time.
And speaking of that comic, because I love it, it's one of my favorites that is currently
Thank you.
out right now. And your dynamic, I love the dynamic you bring to the table for Batman and Superman, because what
Thank you.
we see a lot of the times with these characters, and it's great. I mean, the odd couple angle is what that relationship has been
Yes.
for as long as these guys have been around, it feels
Right.
like. And that's how people think. And it's like, of course, like there is a wonderful dynamic there where these two are going to play off each other and butt heads a lot. But what you've done is basically kind of scrapped that as like, you know what? I would rather just see these guys have mutual respect and see them work together.
Yes.
There's conflict, of course, because any great story
Right.
has it, but their relationship is not one in which they are constantly like, well, you're dumb, Superman.
Why? I mean, why would it be? I mean, here's the thing. Here's my feeling about why Batman would not be enemies with Superman. Besides the fact that they're both good guys, Batman is not stupid. He's the greatest strategic thinker around in the terms of the superhero community.
Mm.
So, what strategic purpose could it possibly could making Superman not like you possibly have? What possible advantage is there to making an enemy out of Superman? None. None. So why would you go down that
Right.
route?
That is the question that nobody has been able to answer. And finally, you're like, there is no good answer.
No good answer. They're just friends.
Yeah.
They're just, I mean, I'm friends with people. I don't know why I'm friends with them. We just click. We have certain
Right.
things in common and we just click. And that's fine.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing about that book though is Robin.
Yes. Yeah.
That's my favorite thing. Because we've done Batman Superman books for a long time now. And I think that the one thing I'm able to bring new to it was Robin. And realizing that that was the secret sauce that has not been there for a while is a wisecracking kid who can make the jokes that Superman and Batman can't.
And also, he's kind of the audience surrogate where he can call them both out.
Oh yes, absolutely. I just did a call out moment in the script I wrote yesterday that I it's strong enough where I'm not even sure my editor's going to let me keep it. So, because it is pretty ballsy of Robin to do this in a moment when Superman is, he needs Superman's attention, but
Right.
we shall see. But yeah, I could write Dick Grayson all day long. I think Dick and Superman have a great relationship. I love the fact that he's constantly complaining. Anytime Superman says, I have to go somewhere, you know, like the Bottle City of Candor or Mars or whatever, Dick is like, I want to go because Batman never takes me anywhere. I want to go.
Right. Which is exactly what a kid would say to Superman. Like,
Sure.
especially a kid who has to hang out with Batman all day. And at a certain point, you're
Exactly.
like, I
Yeah.
want to go outside. I want to see the sun.
Yeah, I'm tired of seeing the cave every single day. What's the Bottle City of Fort Candor like?
Right.
Are there girls there?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, exactly. So, are there other? I guess this is a tough question because I've read a lot of Superman story, not as many as you. You have gone on record saying you have read every single Superman story.
That's true up to a point. I think in the last 10 years or so, I've read every comic story. I
Okay.
think that by now there's been so many YA books and children's books and little golden books and so much material that even I have not managed to touch upon it all.
Mhm.
But I, I'm still in the top 1% of people who have read on. I
I have
gotta
no
be.
doubt. I have no doubt in
Yeah.
my mind. Is there a Superman property maybe in the past few years or so? It can be comics, it can be television, whatever. Is there something that it could be something off the beaten path, just something about the
Yeah.
character that some story that has really caught your attention and impressed you?
That's a good question. Um, I would actually say that I like a lot of what Joe Kelly did in Action Comics, like not specifically stuff. I mean, what's so funny about Truth, Justice, and the American
Mhm.
Way? Really great story. But his whole run was really sharp. Um, there's that. John Ridley's actually doing some Action Comics work right now that's actually really good.
Yeah.
And I got a chance to speak to him about it, and he really has that same reverence to Superman, and he has been heavily influenced.
Is this the John Ridley who wrote 12 Years a Slave?
Yeah, that John Ridley. Yes.
That's amazing.
Big comics fan. Yeah.
Yeah. And he did one
Uh,
for Red and Blue as well.
yep. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, there's certainly been a ton of other stuff. The big find, actually, a couple of months ago, was radio show related. The radio show lasted from 1939 to about 1948,
Mm.
and there's a huge swath of those programs from about 1942 to about 1945 that just don't exist anymore. No one has recordings, no one has files, no one has anything, and they've been given up for dead for a long time. Well, going through DC's archives with their librarian Ben LeClaire, who was a great guy, and set all this up, he found a bunch of tubs, just tubs of scripts that hadn't been identified yet, hadn't been figured out what they belonged to or whatever. But the thing that we found, and this was the find of the decade for us, was that the first appearance of Kryptonite was in the radio show, but that episode has been gone forever. No one knows exactly what that story is.
Mm.
Well, we found the scripts. We found the scripts of that, and that was a big day for both of us. So that was my big Superman moment for the last year or so.
Oh, that's so cool. Will that at some point is anybody thinking of perhaps bringing it into life in one form or another?
No, because it's terrible. No. That was my editor's first question too, is like, should we have this? Should we make a graphic novel out of this? No,
No.
it's a terrible story.
What a shame. But you know what?
Yeah.
It exists. And you can still say that the people who have said historically that's where Kryptonite made its first appearance, now you have the receipts to prove it. So at
I have the
least,
receipts to prove it, and I can be the guy who said, I found it. So that makes me very happy.
You know what I've loved recently, and it's funny, and I bring this up too because I was reading your Shazam, which was an absolute blast,
Thank you.
and I was a little bummed when I was like, "Well, look, you're doing too much already. I hope you're also
Yeah, there's
getting."
only so many books I can do. Right.
I hope you are getting sleep and that you are able to get out and about every so often, and
Every so often. Yeah.
every so often. But I was a little bummed, and I was like, well, maybe I'll just let that taper off. And then recently, I discovered. I say discovered, but I tried to watch My Adventures with Superman, the animated show
Mhm.
that Josie Campbell's doing, and I don't know what it was. I wasn't ready for it at the time. I think
Yeah.
I wasn't sure how I felt about I guess this is a bit of a spoiler, but not really. But Lois and Jimmy, there is a relationship with Clark that is unique to that show where they know almost immediately that he's Superman.
Yeah. I get it. I I prefer the other way. I prefer that they don't know.
Yeah.
But that said, I've watched, both seasons, and I think that they've done a really good job. They've been enjoyable shows.
That's exactly it. One night I picked it back up just because I was like, I've been watching the Bruce Timm Paul Dini animated series
Yeah.
my whole life. My son watches it and he has a whole ritualistic dance when the theme song
Cool.
comes on, which is wonderful. But I was
It's
like,
great. But he's 22, so that's a little
he's
embarrassing. But
22 and he needs to get out of the house.
yeah.
But I just like, let me just put this on, and I don't know what it was, but it just completely clicked with me. And I think what
Yeah.
I realized was it's the dynamic of we haven't really seen that. We haven't seen Clark, Jimmy, and Lois working together as a group with the full
Right.
knowledge of Superman. They know that he's Superman.
Right. And even then, we actually haven't seen Lois, Jimmy, and Clark working together much at all in the last
Yes.
bunch of years.
So I really appreciated that. And then I realized she took over Shazam when you left. So
Yeah.
now I'm back into Shazam and it's wonderful. So
Yeah. She's delightful.
it's
She is doing a really good job. Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing. And
Yeah.
Superman's bringing everyone
All
together
people
as he
together. There
does.
you go.
I would love to, because my wife constantly bring this up whenever I mention your name or like what you're working on that I'm reading, and she always brings up at I think it was may have been the Baltimore Comic Con or Awesome Con many moons ago, where you were the guest of honor, and at the end of your panel, you told a story about your favorite Superman story,
Oh yeah.
which
Do you want
is
that story? Is that what you're going
I'm
for?
fishing for that story because my wife still, when she recounts the memory of you sharing the story, she gets emotional about it.
That's nice.
So
It does. It gets me every time.
yeah,
But my favorite Superman story of all time is from Superman 148. It's called Superman Owes $1 billion. And I preface this by saying, as I do every time I tell the story, I preface this by reminding people it's the 60s. Superman is a fairy tale. Those stories are fairy tales for children. So you have to factor that into account, that what is going to sound silly and ridiculous to you is not to a 6-year-old kid. Right? Is not to that target audience. So the concept of the story, this conceit of the story, is that a well-meaning IRS agent thinks about it and realizes, well, Superman's never filed taxes. And even though he has no demonstrable job, he still takes money in for charities. He still does things and donates and so forth. So even that is taxable income to some degree. So he does the numbers, he runs the numbers, and he realizes that all the charities and stuff he's been dealing with, Superman owes $1 billion in back taxes to the U.S. government. And Superman, at a point in comics publishing where there was not a law on the books somewhere in the world that Superman wouldn't obey. Right? If somebody had written it down as a law, Superman was going to obey it. And so Superman's like, well, you owe $1 billion. I don't know what I can do, but I'll try. And so the rest of the adventure is him going around the world trying to collect $1 billion worth of stuff. And everything, it's a comedy of error. Everything goes wrong. He goes to Atlantis and he digs up some ancient treasure, and then the Atlanteans go, "Thank you so much. That means a lot to us. We've been looking for that." Oh, geez. And he finds a bunch of radium, and then it turns out that the hospital desperately needs radium for chemo treatments and things at that moment in time. Everything goes wrong. He shows up at the IRS agent's office, just hat in hand, going, "I got nothing." And that's when the IRS agent's boss comes in and says, What are you doing? Look, here's the thing. Everyone who files taxes in the United States is allowed to deduct for their dependents. That's just a standard deduction of what, $600 at that point in time. The whole world depends on Superman. The whole world depends on Superman. And if that were the case, then we would owe him money. I mean, that got to me. That was a real emotional moment for me. Like, that's right. The whole world depends on Superman.
Yeah.
And he is, he's always going to be there for us. And that, boy, that sums up Superman to me in one story.
I love that story so, so much. Mark, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for
My
doing
pleasure.
this. One of the great honors of my life has been when I got to tell Richard Donner just how much his work has meant to me and how thank him for basically my appreciation for Superman. Mark, thank you. I put you on that level. I don't know how many people I've recommended Superman Birthright to. Superman skeptics who have said to me, "What do I read? Like, just what am I
Right.
not seeing?" And I said, "Just read Superman Birthright." And they've come back to me and said, "Like, I get it now. I get it."
Thank you. The greatest compliment I can get is when people come up to me at conventions and say, I didn't like Superman and then I read this and now I do.
Thank you so much for continuing to enrich my life, enriching so many people's lives with your work, and for continuing to give us a reason to love Superman. I sincerely, sincerely appreciate it.
My pleasure.